Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating tension between groundbreaking oncology and, frankly, brutal balance sheets over at GRAIL Inc. We're going to look at a company that is quite literally trying to change how humanity detects cancer, while at the exact same time, they're battling the intense financial pressures that come with pioneering such a massive scientific leap.
Okay, let's dive right in by starting with the sheer human stakes of this technology. This quote from GRAIL's president, Josh Offman, perfectly sets the stage. We're looking at a mission to completely revolutionize a flawed standard of care. Right now, cancer is the leading killer of adults over 50 in the US. And a tragic reality is that most of these deadly cancers are discovered way too late, when they're incredibly difficult to treat. GRAIL's foundational argument here is that relying only on our current single cancer screening methods, it's just not enough anymore.
To understand how they plan to change this, we'll follow a quick roadmap. First, the promise of Galleri. Second, clinical trials and results. Third, the financial reality check. Fourth, valuation, bulls versus bears. And finally, restructuring for the future. Let's start with Section 1, the promise of Galleri, revolutionizing early cancer detection.
So what is Galleri? Fundamentally, it's a multi-cancer early detection, or MCED test. By using a simple blood draw, this test actually looks for cell-free DNA that gets shed by tumors into the bloodstream. It basically acts as a unique fingerprint for over 50 different cancer types. And what's really important here is that many of these, like pancreatic or ovarian cancer, currently have absolutely no recommended routine screening. The whole idea is to use it proactively, catching the disease before a patient ever feels a single symptom. And this is catching on. By early 2026, GRAIL had built massive commercial momentum. We're not talking about projections here. These are actual tests being run. They saw a 50% year-over-year jump, performing over 56,000 tests in the first quarter alone, which brought in nearly $40 million in revenue. But crucially, they also announced a planned integration with the Epic electronic health record system. This is huge because it means doctors nationwide will soon be able to order Galleris seamlessly, right within their existing digital workflows, massively expanding access directly at the point of care. Moving on to Section 2, clinical trials and results, the science behind the test. Because, let's face it, commercial momentum means absolutely nothing in healthcare without rigorous science to back it up. The data from their registrational Pathfinder 2 study makes a really compelling case. In a trial of over 35,000 US participants, adding Galleri to standard of care screenings gave a 6.5 times increase in cancer detection. Even better, 71% of those new cancers were caught at stages 1 through 3, which is exactly when the disease is most curable. And they pulled this off while maintaining a 99.6% specificity. In plain English, that translates to a phenomenally low false positive rate of just 0.4%. But we do need to be impartial and look at the nuance of their other major study, the massive 140,000-person trial over in England. Science is rarely a straight line, right? While the trial actually missed its primary endpoint, meaning it didn't achieve a statistically significant combined reduction in stage 3 and 4 diagnoses, it still delivered some highly meaningful secondary successes. For instance, it achieved a greater than 20% reduction in the absolute deadliest stage 4 diagnoses in subsequent screening rounds, plus a 4-fold overall increase in cancer detection compared to standard care alone. So it's a mixed result, sure, but one that still points heavily towards saving lives. All right, let's pivot sharply to Section 3, the financial reality check, the heavy cost of innovation. Here's where things get tough. Look at this staggering number, $395.3 million. That is GRAIL's trailing 12-month net loss. While the revenue we talked about earlier is definitely growing, this figure really underscores the incredible amount of cash they are burning just to keep the lab lights on, fund these massive population-scale clinical trials, and run their day-to-day operations. Zooming in on the most recent quarter, even with solid revenue hitting $40.8 million, you can see the severe underlying friction. They are spending significantly more than they bring in, posting a heavy $93.2 million net loss in just a 3-month period. It's a classic biotech dilemma. The science is clearly working, but the business model still has a very, very steep hill to climb before it reaches profitability. Which brings us to Section 4, valuation, bulls versus bears. Pricing the future. This intense cash burn, paired with incredible scientific promise, has totally polarized the market. Currently, the market is paying a massive premium for GRAIL. At a 16.5 times price-to-sales multiple, GRAIL is trading drastically higher than the broader US biotech industry average, which sits at 10.8 times, and it's miles above its direct biotech peers at 4.4 times. Investors are clearly paying up today because they're expecting massive, disruptive growth tomorrow.
Now, we aren't taking sides here, but it's super important to compare these two distinct market narratives. On one hand, the bull case focuses on the optimism of rapid adoption. They're projecting 24 to 26% annual revenue growth and pointing out that, hey, their losses are actually improving year over year. But on the other hand, the bear case is highly skeptical. Bears focus on the fact that GRAIL is expected to remain entirely unprofitable for at least the next 3 years. That raises some very valid concerns about ongoing shareholder dilution to fund all that cash burn, especially when you factor in some recent insider selling.
Let's look at Section 5, Restructuring for the Future, Pivoting for Survival.
To bridge this exact gap between a world-changing medical test and a bleeding balance sheet, GRAIL is making some really drastic moves. First off, they're shifting their leadership profile to match these immediate challenges. They are transitioning from Bob Ragusa, who successfully scaled their ops and managed their complex spin-out from Illumina, over to Josh Ofman. By bringing in Ofman, who holds deep clinical medicine and health policy expertise, GRAIL is loudly signaling that their next great battle isn't just about scaling the lab anymore. It's about navigating critical FDA regulatory hurdles and securing widespread reimbursement for the test.
At the same time, they're taking severe operational steps. They are aggressively pushing their FDA pre-market approval application, which they submitted earlier this year. But to ensure they actually have the cash on hand to see that approval through, they had to make the painful decision to let go of 350 employees. That is roughly 25% of their entire workforce. On top of that, they're halting research and development on non-Galleri projects. This intense, narrowed focus is explicitly designed to extend their cash runway into 2028.
So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. We have seen the incredible data showing Galleri can catch deadly cancers when they are still treatable. But we've also seen the hundreds of millions of dollars it takes to make that a reality. In the high-stakes, incredibly unforgiving world of biotech, will GRAL's severe financial maneuvering and restructuring buy their life-saving science the time it ultimately needs to change the world? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I highly encourage you to keep a close eye on how this fascinating story unfolds.